The grand hall of the Stellar Council sparkled with lights that reflected off crystalline walls, creating patterns that no human eye had seen before. James Miller straightened his blue diplomatic uniform, trying to hide his nervousness as he became the first human to walk these ancient halls. The council chamber held representatives from 32 spacefaring civilizations. Some floated in anti-gravity pods, others stood on mechanical legs, and a few appeared as mere holograms. But none caught James's attention like the being seated on the crystalline throne at the chamber's head. Queen Lumina of the Crystalline Empire sat perfectly still, her translucent skin catching and reflecting light in ways that made her appear to glow from within. Her eyes, multifaceted like diamonds, studied James with open curiosity. Unlike the other council members who wore elaborate gear or ceremonial dress, she wore only a simple crown made of living crystal that seemed to pulse with her thoughts. "Welcome, Representative Miller of Earth." Her voice rang like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We have watched your species' progress with great interest." James bowed deeply, remembering his training. "Your Majesty, Earth is honored to join the Stellar Council. We hope to learn from and contribute to this grand alliance of worlds." The other council members whispered among themselves. Some spoke in frequencies James couldn't hear, others communicated through light patterns or chemical signals. His translator implant worked overtime trying to keep up with all the different languages. During the formal ceremony, James presented Earth's credentials and took his seat at the new human desk. He noticed Queen Lumina watching him more than the others. Her crystal crown flickered with colors he had no names for. After the main session, Queen Lumina approached him. Up close, her height surprised him. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, yet moved with incredible grace. "Representative Miller, would you join me for a private audience? There are matters I wish to discuss about Earth's integration into the Council." In her private chamber, the Queen seemed different, more relaxed, more curious. She asked questions about Earth that went beyond the usual diplomatic exchanges. She wanted to know about human music, about how it felt to stand in the rain, about why humans laughed. "Your species fascinates me," she admitted. "Most races we encounter are predictable variations on familiar patterns. But humans, you're different. You adapt in ways we've never seen before." James felt himself relaxing too. "We're just trying to find our place in the galaxy, Your Majesty. Everything here is new to us. Please, call me Lumina when we're not in formal session," she said, her crystal crown pulsing with warm colors. "I think our species could learn much from each other." Over the next few weeks, James found himself spending more time with Lumina than any other council member. They discussed treaties and trade agreements, but their conversations often drifted to more personal topics. She taught him about the 1,000-year history of her people, and he told her stories about growing up on a small farm in Montana. One day, during a break between council sessions, Lumina shared something unexpected. "My people are dying, James," she said softly. "We haven't had a successful birth in over 50 years. Our scientists can't explain why." James felt his heart ache for her. "I'm so sorry. Is there anything Earth scientists could do to help?" "Perhaps," she said, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Your species has shown remarkable biological compatibility with various environments. That's part of why I requested so many meetings with you. I believe humans might hold the key to saving more than just my people." Neither of them knew then how prophetic those words would become. As James left her chamber that day, he caught several council members watching them with what his translator interpreted as concern. Humans were too new, too unpredictable to be trusted with such critical matters, they seemed to think. But Lumina had made her choice. She would trust this human, this strange being from a young world, with the future of her people, and that trust would change the galaxy forever. Word spread quickly through the Stellar Council about the growing closeness between Queen Lumina and the human representative. The council's senior members called an emergency session, but not in the main chamber. They met in a secure room deep within the Crystal City. "This cannot continue," declared High Elder Bright, his gaseous form swirling with agitation. "The Crystalline Empire must maintain its purity. A human is not worthy of such attention from our queen. James learned of the meeting through his own sources. He sat in his quarters, reading report after report about the supposed dangers of human-alien relationships. His communication device buzzed constantly with warnings from Earth's government. Representative Miller, one message read, "Your continued association with Queen Lumina risks Earth's standing in the Council. Consider your position carefully." But that evening, like many before, he still made his way to the Queen's private gardens. Lumina waited for him beside a pool of liquid crystal that reflected the stars above. "They're trying to stop us from meeting," she said without turning around. Her voice carried a musical tone of defiance. James moved to stand beside her. "They say it's impossible, that our species are too different, that we're breaking too many protocols." Lumina turned to face him, her crystalline form glowing with internal light. "Do you know why my people chose me as queen?" she asked suddenly. James shook his head. "Because I can see patterns others cannot. When I look at you, at humans, I see possibilities that terrify the Council." She reached out, her crystalline fingers almost touching his face. "They fear what they don't understand." A guard approached, then stopped abruptly when Lumina turned her gaze on him. The guard retreated, but both knew they were being watched. "The Council's scientists say our biological structures are completely incompatible," James said softly. "That any attempt at closer relations would be futile." Lumina made a sound like chiming bells, her species' version of laughter. "The same scientists who haven't solved our fertility crisis in a century. They see only what they expect to see." She moved closer, her form casting prismatic lights across James's face. "Human DNA has properties we've never encountered before. Your cells can adapt in ways that defy our understanding. When you're near, my crystalline structure responds differently. Can't you feel it?" James could. The air between them seemed to hum with energy. The crystal walls pulsed with new patterns, colors he'd never seen before. "My advisors say I should return to Earth," he admitted. "They think I'm compromising my position here." "And what do you think?" Lumina asked, her multifaceted eyes searching his face. Before he could answer, alarms blared through the palace. Emergency lights flashed as Council security forces approached the garden. "Your Majesty," the head of security called out, "the Council demands your presence, and Representative Miller must return to his quarters immediately." Lumina straightened to her full height, her crown flaring with intense light. "Tell the Council their queen is occupied with diplomatic matters. Representative Miller and I are discussing crucial aspects of human crystalline relations." The security chief hesitated, caught between Council orders and royal authority. Finally, he bowed and retreated, but the alarms continued to sound. "They'll try to separate us," James said quietly. "Let them try." Lumina's voice carried steel beneath its musical tones. "I am queen, and I've made my choice." She extended her hand to him, crystal fingers glinting in the starlight. James took it without hesitation, feeling the warm pulse of her crystalline form against his skin. Around them, the garden's crystals hummed with new frequencies, creating patterns that hadn't been seen in the Empire for generations. Neither of them knew it yet, but those patterns were the first sign of something impossible beginning to form, something that would change both their species forever. Above them, the artificial stars continued to shine, witnesses to a bond that defied all scientific understanding and political wisdom. The Royal Medical Chamber hummed with concerned activity. Queen Lumina lay on a crystal examination bed, while the Empire's top medical experts hovered around her, their instruments scanning her glowing form repeatedly. James stood at a respectful distance, his heart pounding. "Impossible," muttered the chief medical officer, his crystalline form flickering with confusion. The readings must be wrong. But they weren't wrong. Every scan showed the same thing. A small cluster of cells growing within the Queen's crystalline matrix, pulsing with both human and crystal energy patterns. "How?" one of the younger doctors whispered, adjusting her scanners again. "Our species aren't even based on the same biological principles." Lumina's eyes found James across the room. Despite the chaos around her, she seemed perfectly calm, almost amused. "Remember what I said about human adaptability?" she said to the doctors. "It seems I was more right than even I knew." The news spread through the palace like wildfire. Guards whispered to servants, servants whispered to traitors, and within hours, the impossible truth reached the council chambers. Queen Lumina was carrying a hybrid child. The Queen's personal chamber became a storm of activity. Scientists argued with doctors, diplomats argued with counselors, and security forces tried to maintain order as more and more officials demanded to see the scans for themselves. James watched as one expert after another examined the results, each coming to the same stunned conclusion. Inside Lumina's crystalline form, human DNA had somehow merged with crystal matrices to create something entirely new. "The child's structure is fascinating," explained Dr. Bright, the youngest and most excited of the medical team. She projected a hologram showing the developing hybrid. "See how the human DNA has adapted to work with our crystalline patterns. It's creating entirely new forms of biological organization." Lumina sat up on her bed, her form glowing brighter than usual. "Show them the energy readings," she commanded. The doctor adjusted the hologram. Now they could all see the pulses of energy flowing between the Queen and the growing child. Patterns that matched neither human nor crystalline norms, but something in between. "The child is drawing power from both biological systems," the doctor explained. "It's using human cellular energy and our crystal resonance simultaneously. We've never seen anything like it." James finally moved closer to Lumina, protocol forgotten in the moment. "Are you both healthy?" he asked quietly. Lumina's eyes sparkled with joy. "We are more than healthy," she said. "The child's presence is actually strengthening my crystal matrix. It's as if this was meant to be." A commotion at the chamber doors interrupted them. The High Council had arrived in full formal dress, their forms radiating concern and confusion. "Your Majesty," the first speaker began, "this situation is unprecedented. The political implications." "The political implications," Lumina cut in, her voice ringing with authority, "are exactly what our empire needs. For too long we've been stagnant, unchanging, watching our population dwindle. Now we have proof that change is possible." She reached for James's hand, holding it openly before the council. "This child represents hope, not just for the crystalline empire, but for all species who thought they were doomed to extinction." The chamber fell silent. Even the most conservative council members couldn't argue with the readings displayed before them. The impossible had happened, and now they had to deal with it. "The human DNA," Dr. Bright spoke up excitedly. "It's not just adapting to our biology. It's teaching it how to adapt. The implications for our fertility crisis." James squeezed Lumina's hand gently. In that moment, he understood why she had been so interested in humans from the start. She hadn't just been looking for a diplomatic ally. She'd been looking for a way to save her people. Around them, the crystal walls of the medical chamber pulsed with new patterns, as if the very palace itself was celebrating the news. The child growing within the Queen would change everything, not just for two people or two species, but for the entire galactic community. And this was only the beginning. The Stellar Council chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from 32 species all tried to speak at once, their voices, light signals, and chemical markers creating a storm of protest and excitement. "This is an abomination," thundered the representative from the Pure Light Collective, his energy form flaring dangerously. Cross-species breeding was forbidden by the Ancient Accords. The Ancient Accords also said faster than light travel was impossible, countered a younger council member, her holographic form flickering with enthusiasm. Yet here we all are. James stood beside Queen Lumina's throne, watching the debate rage. Her crystal form glowed steadily, one hand resting protectively over her midsection where their child grew. On the massive screens around the chamber, messages from Earth's governments scrolled past. Some celebrated the unprecedented achievement. Others demanded James's immediate recall. Religious leaders debated the spiritual implications. Scientists begged for access to study the hybrid pregnancy. Order called the council elder, his gaseous form swirling with stress patterns. We must address this situation with clarity. Lumina rose from her throne, her height and crystalline beauty commanding instant attention. What is there to address? Her voice rang out. My child grows strong. The scans show no danger to either myself or the Empire. If anything, this development offers hope to many species facing extinction. But the protocols, began one counselor. The protocols were written before we knew humans existed. Lumina cut in. Before we understood their unique genetic abilities. Should we cling to old laws simply because they are old? From Earth's section of the chamber, a transmission broke through. It was the World Council's emergency session. The human race, announced their speaker, cannot ignore the implications of this event. If our DNA can adapt to crystalline biology, what other possibilities exist? The chamber erupted again. Species that had long since given up hope of continuing their bloodlines suddenly saw new possibilities. Others feared what such hybridization might mean for the purity of their races. James stepped forward. If I may address the council. Silence fell. Every eye, sensor, and detection device turned toward him. I understand your fears, he began. Humans feared the unknown once too. But look at what we've achieved by working together. This child represents the next step in that cooperation, not just diplomacy between species, but true unity. Before anyone could respond, the chamber's medical sensors blared an alert. All eyes turned to Lumina, who had placed both hands over her midsection. The child was moving, creating new crystal patterns that rippled across the Queen's form in beautiful waves. Dr. Bright rushed forward with a scanner. Remarkable, she exclaimed. The hybrid DNA is teaching the crystal matrix new growth patterns. It's as if the child is showing us how to evolve. The pure light representative flickered in agitation. This is precisely what we feared. These humans aren't just breeding with us. They're changing us. Yes, Lumina said softly, but her voice carried to every corner of the chamber. Change is exactly what some of us need. My people have been unchanging for too long. We've watched our children become fewer, our crystal songs grow quieter. But now, she gestured to the medical readings displayed above them. The new patterns pulsed with both human vitality and crystalline beauty. I am still your queen, she declared. This child is the future of our empire, a future that embraces change while honoring our traditions. Who among you will stand against hope itself? One by one, the opposing voices fell silent. Even the most conservative council members couldn't deny the beauty of what they were witnessing. The child's energy patterns played across the chamber's walls, creating harmonies that hadn't been heard in the Empire for generations. James moved closer to Lumina, protocol forgotten in the moment. Together, they faced the council, not just as representatives of their species, but as symbols of what the future could hold. Above them, the ancient crystal dome of the council chamber sparkled with new light, as if the very stars themselves were witnessing the beginning of a new era in galactic history. The research facility beneath the Crystal Palace buzzed with unprecedented activity. Scientists from 100 worlds crowded around displays showing the latest scans of the hybrid child growing within Queen Lumina. Look at this sequence. Dr. Bright pointed to a flowing pattern of light and DNA. The human genetic code isn't just adapting. It's teaching the crystal matrix how to adapt with it. James watched from beside Lumina's examination pod as researchers made discovery after discovery. His wife's crystal form glowed with a new intensity, her matrix now threaded with strands of modified human DNA that pulsed with life. We've identified the key component, announced a human geneticist, Dr. Wells. Human DNA contains what we're calling adaptive resonance patterns. When exposed to alien biology, these patterns can shift and merge in ways we never thought possible. Lumina's voice chimed with amusement. In simpler terms, Humans are universal adapters. The implications rocked the scientific community. Teams that had spent centuries trying to solve various species' fertility crises suddenly had new avenues to explore. The unique properties of human DNA offered hope to dozens of dying races. Your cells don't just change themselves, explained a crystalline scientist, her form flickering with excitement. They somehow teach other species' cells how to change too. It's like you're carrying the universe's genetic keys. News of the discovery spread rapidly across the galaxy. Earth's communication networks nearly collapsed under the weight of incoming messages. Every dying species wanted to know if human DNA might help them survive. In the private research wing, Lumina underwent another scan. The hybrid child's growth had accelerated, creating new crystal formations that sparkled with human vitality. "The child is perfect," Dr. Bright announced, her instruments recording every detail. "Both human and crystal aspects are in complete harmony. But more than that, look here." She pointed to a new pattern emerging in Lumina's crystal matrix. "The queen's own structure is becoming more adaptable. The child is teaching the mother how to change." James moved closer to the display. "Could this help other crystalline people?" "Help them?" Dr. Wells laughed. "This could save them. We're already seeing ways to apply these principles to other species. The crystalline empire isn't just getting an heir, they're getting a whole new future." Research teams worked around the clock, studying every aspect of the hybrid pregnancy. They discovered that human DNA contained properties that could bridge seemingly incompatible biological systems. It was as if humanity had evolved to be the galaxy's genetic mediators. "Think of it like this," Dr. Bright explained to a group of visiting scientists. "If all species are speaking different genetic languages, humans can speak all of them. And more importantly, they can teach others how to speak new languages too." In her private chambers later, Lumina watched recordings of the day's discoveries. "My people thought we were doomed to fade away," she said softly, "trapped in our perfect, unchanging crystal forms. But your people, James, you've shown us that perfection isn't about staying the same. It's about having the courage to change." James sat beside her, watching the child's energy patterns dance across her crystal surface. Earth scientists are calling it universal genetic resonance. They think it might be why humans adapted so quickly to space travel and alien environments. "They're calling it science," Lumina chimed with laughter. "I call it magic. Look." She held out her hand, and James watched in amazement as her crystal structure shifted slightly, becoming more fluid, more alive. "The child is teaching me things my people forgot ages ago. We weren't always so rigid, you know. We used to dance with the stars." Beyond the palace walls, the crystal city glowed with new light. News of the scientific breakthroughs had brought hope to a people who had been slowly accepting their extinction. Now, everywhere you looked, you could see signs of change. Subtle shifts in crystal patterns, new harmonies in the ancient songs. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for humanity all along. Not as conquerors or saviors, but as bridges between the stars, carrying the keys to unlock new forms of life itself. The research facility beneath the Crystal Palace buzzed with unprecedented activity. Scientists from 100 worlds crowded around displays showing the latest scans of the hybrid child growing within Queen Lumina. "Look at this sequence," Dr. Bright pointed to a flowing pattern of light and DNA. "The human genetic code isn't just adapting. It's teaching the crystal matrix how to adapt with it." James watched from beside Lumina's examination pod as researchers made discovery after discovery. His wife's crystal form glowed with a new intensity, her matrix now threaded with strands of modified human DNA that pulsed with life. "We've identified the key component," announced a human geneticist, Dr. Wells. "Human DNA contains what we're calling adaptive resonance patterns. When exposed to alien biology, these patterns can shift and merge in ways we never thought possible." Lumina's voice chimed with amusement. "In simpler terms, humans are universal adapters." The implications rocked the scientific community. Teams that had spent centuries trying to solve various species' fertility crises suddenly had new avenues to explore. The unique properties of human DNA offered hope to dozens of dying races. "Your cells don't just change themselves," explained a crystalline scientist, her form flickering with excitement. "They somehow teach other species' cells how to change too. It's like you're carrying the universe's genetic keys." News of the discoveries spread rapidly across the galaxy. Earth's communication networks nearly collapsed under the weight of incoming messages. Every dying species wanted to know if human DNA might help them survive. In the private research wing, Lumina underwent another scan. The hybrid child's growth had accelerated, creating new crystal formations that sparkled with human vitality. "The child is perfect," Dr. Bright announced, her instruments recording every detail. "Both human and crystal aspects are in complete harmony. But more than that, look here." She pointed to a new pattern emerging in Lumina's crystal matrix. "The queen's own structure is becoming more adaptable. The child is teaching the mother how to change." James moved closer to the display. "Could this help other crystalline people? Help them?" Dr. Wells laughed. "This could save them. We're already seeing ways to apply these principles to other species. The crystalline empire isn't just getting an heir, they're getting a whole new future." Research teams worked around the clock, studying every aspect of the hybrid pregnancy. They discovered that human DNA contained properties that could bridge seemingly incompatible biological systems. It was as if humanity had evolved to be the galaxy's genetic mediators. "Think of it like this," Dr. Bright explained to a group of visiting scientists. "If all species are speaking different genetic languages, humans can speak all of them. And more importantly, they can teach others how to speak new languages too." In her private chambers later, Lumina watched recordings of the day's discoveries. "My people thought we were doomed to fade away," she said softly, "trapped in our perfect, unchanging crystal forms. But your people, James, you've shown us that perfection isn't about staying the same. It's about having the courage to change." James sat beside her, watching the child's energy patterns dance across her crystal surface. Earth's scientists are calling it universal genetic resonance. They think it might be why humans adapted so quickly to space travel and alien environments. "They're calling it science," Lumina chimed with laughter. "I call it magic. Look." She held out her hand, and James watched in amazement as her crystal structure shifted slightly, becoming more fluid, more alive. "The child is teaching me things my people forgot ages ago. We weren't always so rigid, you know. We used to dance with the stars." Beyond the palace walls, the crystal city glowed with new light. News of the scientific breakthroughs had brought hope to a people who had been slowly accepting their extinction. Now, everywhere you looked, you could see signs of change. Subtle shifts in crystal patterns, new harmonies in the ancient songs. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for humanity all along, not as conquerors or saviors, but as bridges between the stars, carrying the keys to unlock new forms of life itself. The Crystal Palace's birthing chamber glowed with unprecedented brilliance. Energy patterns rippled through the ancient walls as Queen Lumina's time approached. Representatives from every spacefaring race gathered in the waiting halls outside, all eyes fixed on the medical displays. "It's beginning," Dr. Bright announced, her crystal form vibrating with excitement. James stood at Lumina's side, watching in awe as his wife's crystalline structure began to pulse with new light. The child within her created cascading patterns of energy that no one had ever seen before. "The hybrid matrix is stable," reported Dr. Wells, monitoring the human DNA patterns. "Both crystal and organic systems are in perfect harmony." Lumina's voice rang out like celestial chimes as the birthing process began. The chamber's crystals resonated in response, creating a symphony that hadn't been heard in the Empire for generations. Light danced across the walls, telling the story of two species becoming one. Then, in a flash of brilliance that temporarily overloaded every sensor in the chamber, it happened. The child emerged, a perfect fusion of human and crystal, glowing with internal light, while maintaining a partially organic form. "She's beautiful," James whispered, looking at his daughter for the first time. The child's skin sparkled like diamonds, but was soft and warm to the touch. Her eyes held the same multifaceted brilliance as her mother's, but with hints of human color swirling within. "She's perfect," Lumina chimed softly, her crystal form radiating joy. "Look how she changes." The child's surface shifted subtly, adapting to each person who held her. When the doctors examined her, they found she could alter her crystal organic structure at will, switching between more human or more crystalline states as needed. News of the successful birth spread through the galaxy at light speed. On Earth, celebrations broke out in every city. Among the crystalline people, ancient songs of renewal echoed through their cities for the first time in centuries. In the council chamber, the first speaker made a historic announcement. "This birth marks more than the arrival of an heir. It marks the beginning of a new age. Humanity has proven itself to be the key to genetic renewal that many species have sought for millennia." The political implications were enormous. Earth, once seen as a newcomer to galactic society, suddenly found itself at the center of a biological renaissance. Dozens of species facing extinction now looked to humans with hope. "We're already seeing changes in our general population," Dr. Bright reported excitedly. "The presence of the hybrid child seems to be awakening dormant abilities in our crystal matrices. Our people are remembering how to change, how to grow." The child, named Aurora for the way her crystal skin created waves of light, like Earth's northern lights, became a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy. She combined the best of both species, human adaptability with crystalline grace and power. Lumina addressed the council a week after the birth, her form glowing with renewed strength. "For too long, we feared change. We thought purity meant remaining unchanged. But true purity is found in growth, in the courage to evolve. Humanity hasn't corrupted us. They've reminded us of what we once were, and what we can be again." James watched his wife and daughter with pride as cheers echoed through the chamber. Aurora's laugh sounded like tiny bells, creating ripples of light that made even the most serious council members smile. The Stellar Council voted unanimously to create a new division dedicated to genetic cooperation between species. Earth would lead these efforts, sharing their unique adaptive abilities to help dying races find new paths to survival. "It's funny," James said to Lumina as they watched Aurora play with both human and crystal toys in their private chambers. "Everyone thought humans would make their mark on the galaxy through technology or warfare. Instead, we're helping create new forms of life itself." Lumina's crystal form chimed with laughter. "Perhaps that was your species' purpose all along, not to conquer the stars, but to help them dance in new ways." Above them, through the crystal dome of their chamber, the stars seemed to shine brighter than ever before, witnessing the dawn of a new era in galactic history, an era where the boundaries between species began to fade, and new forms of life blossomed among the stars.